Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's webinar. Today is a photographer spotlight webinar, which is everybody's favorite kind because we get to welcome a shoot-proof photographer. And this week we have Amy Dangerfield of Amy Dangerfield Photography out of Arizona. Hi, Amy. Thanks for coming today.
Thank you
Amy's got, I know you have an awesome story to tell. I've heard a little bit of it, so I'm not going to spoil it for anybody, but I can't wait to hear even more. So I think everyone that's here will find some inspiration from what Amy has to say, especially as it pertains to our own art and work, photography, basically every part of our lives.
Hi, everyone. I'm so glad that all of you are here and we get to chat about the art and business of documentary family photography. I really appreciate you taking the time to spend with me today. So let's get started, and let me introduce myself first a little bit and my family. So I was born and raised in China, Wuhan to be specific, and unfortunately or fortunately, now everybody knows where that is. And my grandma, as you can see here, my mom's mom, she was a documentary film editor in China, actually. So growing up, I've always had some kind of camera around me, documenting my life, my childhood. It's really fun to see my personality as a kid. And now that I have my own kids, to compare my personality with my kids' personalities as well. Of course, I have albums and albums of family photos like this. Here you can see this was probably one of those end of the year preschool performance day. And then I was all dolled up with that crazy makeup back then, right? And I was eating my ice cream, in the middle. And all of my grandparents were picking me up from school and carrying all my stuff. It's really fun to see these images, and so I can go back in time and see what life was like. And another perk I got is that I was able to get my hands on cameras from a very early age. And this was one of the first photos I've ever taken of my parents. So this was in 1993. I believe I was 4 years old, and we're visiting this beautiful palace, and I took a photo for my parents. And of course, I have been taking photos ever since. Fast forward a little bit, I came to the United States for school in 2010, and that's where I met my husband, and the rest is history. Now I have my own family, and I have my own 4 little kids. So of course, I continue to document my life since I am a stay-at-home mom as well. I spend a lot of time around my kids, and so currently, documentary family photography is my focus, since that's what I spent most of my time on. While I am taking photos of my life, documenting our day-to-day, I also try to teach my children to learn to see the world from their perspective, from their view. And also, I want them to have the ability and the tool to document their perspective visually as well. With that being said, very quickly after I married into this new culture, and at least from my husband's side of family, I realized that there is this new tradition that people do around Christmas time or holiday season. People will send out Christmas cards, and usually they will include a family portrait with their card as well. I've enjoyed this practice because it gives me an excuse to always have an up-to-date family portrait of my family, so I can send out Christmas cards. And because of that, when I started my business, of course, that became my focus. And I started to create beautiful family portraits for all my clients so they can send out Christmas cards as well. Now, of course, I started to use this tagline I'm sure a lot of people have used before. I said, as the photographer, I am helping all of you families to preserve and document your family story, right? I hope that sounds familiar. And when I look at photos like this is a beautifully executed photo. However, I kept asking myself, what story am I telling exactly with portraits like this? Of course, I'm sure all of you would be able to come up with your own version of a story when you look at photos like this, right? What story this family has. So for me, I thought this is a great photo, and I'm telling a story of this big, growing, happy family. And since I worked with them over the years, and this is also a story of continuing their legacy that the grandparents started. Now they have, children and grandchildren. This is great. However, I just realized that this statement of look at us, we have this awesome family, we're so happy together, can be used for every single family or client I've worked with, or at least I hope that's, a true statement for every family that I've worked with. So I started to question, is there anything else I can do? Is there something I can do to tell their more unique stories? Can we get out of the literal of I have a good family, you have a good family, we all have a good family? And that's when I started to take the lifestyle approach. And of course, now I start to create these small, fun family outing, family adventure stories for my clients, for these people. And with lifestyle approach, I would be able to pick a location that is pretty, but at the same time, I can provide some kind of activity for the family to actually do during our session. And of course, I would pick a good time of the day, so the lighting is great, right? And also, I usually style all my clients' families, so I can make sure the aesthetics are matching the location and all that. So it has been working really well for me, taking the lifestyle approach, because, with a very short of a period of time, I started to get a lot of clients getting paid to do this. My clients enjoy it because they do have fun during the outing or adventure we create it together. And also I start to get published and get, awards. So I should be content with the way I'm going. However, after a couple of years, I start to feel that there is just something missing, and there is a disconnection somehow. I initially brushed it off and blamed it on the creativity burnout after busy seasons year after year. But then I quickly realized that what was bugging me deep down was that, like, this was a story that I created for my clients and for these families, but this is not how I usually live my life. If you know me with 4 kids, like I already get like stains on my shirt like before 9 a.m. right? And then so I just feel like this unspoken pressure that I should probably live the life like this when I am promoting this lifestyle, when I'm promoting art like this. I probably should lead by example, but I can't to some degree. Like, this is just not how I feel comfortable living my life. And then even though I knew that this was essentially a story that we created together, subconsciously, when I keep posting these photos and promoting these, I feel like this should be, like the daily life. This should be what life looked like. And then so I felt that my life was not good enough. My life was not pretty enough. I could never keep up with my housework, my duties as a mom, as a business owner. And then I started to feel like I was not a good mom, and my life is just not interesting. And all of that negative thoughts just rooted from this little disconnection between what I am creating versus what, how I am living my life. So my remedy for that was that I decided, you know what? I'm going to create this great adventure, essentially like, a 6-week long lifestyle session for my own family. I decided to just, I will go and bring my own family to China and visit my family there. And it was Chinese New Year, and I will plan everything. I literally wrote down a full list of shots that I want to get, right? I planned everything to the details, and I knew that I would be able to get good photos and people would go crazy about them, right? That's all I cared about. Of course, I was excited to see family, but from a photography perspective, I was just so excited that I get to create all these really fun images. So to share a couple of examples, one, I was determined to get this photo of my grandma who raised me when I was little to hold my little baby. And then I will be able to get that photo of the wrinkled hand of my grandma and holding the chubby little, a newborn, or, well, he was 8 months old, but essentially like a baby hand, right? That would be amazing. And because it was Chinese New Year, I was already lined up. I had all this traditional Chinese outfit picked out for my kids, and they're all in shopping cart, ready to go, ready to be ordered. And we usually have these like really fun Chinese New Year celebrations and markets. And I was going to bring all my family to go visit those places. And I was even watching the weather forecast so I can pick the right date and all that. And we have a zoo in Wuhan, and we have a panda there. And so I actually have, I have a little panda hat, really cute, fluffy panda hat. I was bringing that with us so we can get photos of my kids wearing that hat, medium panda. Anyways, it had a full list like that. And I was convinced that 2020 is going to be my year with all these photos I'm going to create. We're going to have so much content. I'm going to get likes. I'm going to get followers. I will win awards and my business will be great. And 2020 is going to be my year. And lesson learned, just nobody ever claim that a year is your year. Okay. Right. So of course, everybody knew what happened. Then we landed in China, in Wuhan, on January 17th of 2020. And that was a Friday at night. So we got there. For the next 2 days, we actually went to visit my grandparents on both sides because somehow my parents managed to keep it a secret for both of them. So we had to do this like little surprise visit with them and say, haha, we're here. Happy New Year. But because it was more of a surprise visit and also just a quick kind of saying hello, and we're all dealing with jet lags, I had my camera with me, but I didn't really thought about taking any photos during those 2 days because, I thought we're not coordinating our family outfits. The lighting was not good. The weather was kind of gloomy, and we're still cranky because of the jet lag. And we've got time. We're spending 6 weeks here, right? So we've got time. We're in no rush. I will be able to create these images later on. So I told my grandparents without taking any photos for those 2 days. And I said, we'll come back to visit soon. We've got time. And of course, on January 23rd, that was 5 days after we landed, Wuhan, the city of 11 million people, went into strict lockdown mode. We were lucky enough that we lived in the area that we were still able to go downstairs and walk around the community a little bit, while some other families had to really literally just stay hunkered down in a tiny apartment. So during the first 2 weeks of the lockdown, I was not in a good mood because, essentially I was going through this crazy turmoil and of the grieving process. So I was sad because we spent all this time and money to come to China and now we're stuck. And two, I was very, very angry because I just thought, this pandemic, or at that point, it was only just, like an outbreak, right? I just thought this outbreak, this new thing totally ruined my life. All of my opportunities to take all those photos that I had planned were gone. And there was no way for us to go anywhere. We could just walk these empty streets every day. And then it was stressful even to, go out because of the mask mandate and trying to get all the little kids to wear a mask and all that stuff. So I did not want to take photos at all. I was just mad. I'm like, this is not happening. This is bad. But I was committed to a 365 project that year. So I promised myself that I would take a photo every single day with my big girl camera of my own family. So that was really the only motivation I had to continue to take photos throughout my stay in China, just because I felt like, okay, I probably should do my project. And I did not take a look at any of the photos I was taking, and I was not editing any of them. I was just simply clicking my shutters through and totally relying on my instincts. And very quickly, we start to get notification and also information that we would be able to get evacuated out of the pandemic or the epicenter. On one hand, it was some sort of a relief that we're able to get out of this, or at least we hope that we could get back to normal life. But on the other hand, I was just so sad because I didn't get to see my grandparents again. I didn't get to do any of those things, and I didn't get any of the photos I wanted to get, right? But I was still holding on to that slim chance that maybe, this might take a dramatic turn and we might change our plan and we might be able to stay and finish our family vacation here. And when we finally boarded our flight back home, as you can see here, this was our flight back. It was a cargo plane retrofitted with passenger seat. And we had no cargo, no luggage compartments, and everything was just stuffed under the seats. And all these people here, you can see they're not flight attendants. They are in hazmat suit and they're embassy workers, so they can do all the, paperwork and stuff on the plane as well. And when they finally said through their handheld speaker that, all right, we're clear to take off, let's get you home safely, that's the moment when I know reality really hit me, that I just officially lost my opportunity to ever go back to document what my life was really like living in China through a pandemic. And what made it worse is that not only I lost the opportunity to do that, I might have lost officially the opportunity to ever take another photo of me and my family in China, and especially my grandparents. And that was a very, very sad realization for me. Until this day, I still regret that I didn't do more. And the reason why I didn't do more made me even more upset at myself, because the only reason why I didn't create more was because I was so hung up on this idea that, life should be happy. This is what life should be like. It should be all joyful, festive, but real life was not like that. And I didn't want to be honest with myself. I didn't want to face what was real. And that was the reason why I didn't create more and I didn't document more. So after we got back to the United States and we were quarantined in Omaha, and I start to frantically go through all the photos I took in China, trying to find something good in there that I can hold on to, because I just felt like I might never see these people of mine again, right? And I came across this photo. It was my mom cooking, right? And when we were there, we had a family of 5 of us and my parents. So the 7 of us getting stuck in a little 3-bedroom apartment. And this was the kitchen my mom cooked out of. And she cooked us 3 meals every single day, and sometimes even late night snacks. And every meal was a feast. My mom made all these different fun dishes so we could still have a really good Chinese New Year celebration and somewhat normal feel to the Chinese New Year. And I just felt spoiled because I'm usually the one who cooking here, right? So I took a picture as a way to remember that, my mom cooked for us for all those days. And it was great. And when we started to FaceTime my parents during quarantine after we've left, and I started to notice that my parents would make comments that they start to get up later so they can only they can just eat 2 meals a day, not 3 full meals, so that way they can stretch out their food storage a little bit. And my mom and dad would make comments like, oh, your snacks look amazing. Well, we're well taken care of during our quarantine, but nothing was, fancy. And they would have jokingly say, oh, you know what? We have to count our eggs so that we don't, your dad doesn't eat too many and we run out of eggs. And that is when I realized that my mom has literally drained her food storage so we could have a really great time in China while they left nothing for themselves. And that's when I realized that I do not need any of the world-shattering, newsworthy images. I don't need to chase after the aesthetics, this perfect grid on social media. What I am seeing right in front of me, the most unconditional love presented in such a humble way, is way, way, way more than good enough. I don't think my mom or I have ever just verbally said I love you in person to each other. That's probably just our, the Asian culture. But looking at this photo, I have zero doubt that my mom has so much love for me and for my family. And through this photo, I hope that I can show enough love and respect from my standpoint to my mom as well. And I really do believe that we all have stories to tell, small or big. And after I shared my story about my mom cooking and continue to share my daily, just stories on every aspect of my life, I started to get all these people reaching out to me, sharing that, oh, I can resonate from all over the world. So it's not just Chinese people can resonate with how mom, takes care of their children, right? And this is when I realized that we need to tell our stories firsthand. This is the only way when we share our stories, we could start to understand each other a little bit better, to get that perspective, that personal touch to the story. And we'll realize that, yes, we live in all different parts of the world, but we share so much in common. And that's what will bind us together as human race. And at the same time, through sharing all these different perspectives and different stories, we get to see how different every one of us will be. And that makes our society and makes our world so beautiful, because we can celebrate the diversity. We don't have to be all the same. So that's why I really would encourage all of you to really think, what story do I have? What family story do I have? What story of mine I want to tell? So after hearing all these stories, you probably want to ask, what exactly is documentary photography? What's the difference, right? So I have this listed. This is the code of ethics I got from the MPPA website, and I circled number 5. So from a technical standpoint, the most straightforward way to tell it apart, that you're shooting a documentary approach, is that while photographing subjects you do not intentionally contribute to, alter, or seek to alter or influence events. So put it in simple way, right? If I see a light that is on in someone's home and I did not quite like it, with lifestyle session or other genres, you can just go turn it off to make it work. However, with documentary approach, you can't. You'll have to figure out a way to work with that light, because you cannot alter the scene, right? Or if you see a family with this little toddler making this really cute, funny face, and then you missed it for the first time. And with lifestyle sessions, you could go and prompt this little kid and say, hey, can you make that face again? But with documentary, you can't. And of course, in post-processing as well, you're not supposed to alter the pixels within the frame. So if you go back and look at your photo and you realize, oh shoot, I didn't notice that light switch on the wall. And with other, sessions, and you're able to just like, okay, I'm going to clone that out. But with documentary, you're not supposed to do that. So we can spend a lot of time talking about the technical stuff, like what you're not supposed to do with documentary approach. But for me, I really think the difference between documentary approach versus others is that it's a different way of seeing the world, seeing your life. And as you know, like I mentioned earlier, with other genres, I more feel like it's a way of you to see life, what life could be, right? And you can create your vision and all that. And with documentary, it's more of a way of seeing what life is. So I tend to not be super technical when it comes to photography because, we all need a good technical base, like basic or foundation to create strong images, but it's really more how you see the world. And that's how you find your voice and you are able to connect and resonate with people. So for me personally, I really love documentary approach is that it has become therapeutic and also empowering for me, at least. And like I said, before this whole pandemic thing, I was constantly chasing after that image that, oh, I should live a, like more glamorous life. Or I was thinking that, oh, I only should focus on all the joy and all the positive aspects. It's good to be positive, but it can become toxic when you suppress all the other negative feelings. And when I approached life with documentary and looking through all the photos I took in China actually helped me to process what actually went on in my head and in the world. And I was able to live through all that emotions, and I was able to finally move forward and be at peace with what my life is. And I do think this is empowering as well when someone is able to let go of that control. And that is the only way you can gain the ultimate control over life, when you are at peace and you can say that, you know what, my life could be better, but my life is good enough. So that is really why I love this approach. Even though it's challenging, it has a lot of restrictions and it's hard to learn to some degree sometimes, but it's really worth the effort to really go through this process as an artist to create art for myself. And in return, I can create art and create, images that are documenting their life and their story for other people. So you might ask, like, okay, I don't have family live in other parts of the world, and nobody wishes to ever go back into, another pandemic. So what story should we tell? How can we find our stories? I want to share another story of mine that is more, not as crazy, not as extreme of a story like the pandemic one. So as you can see here, this is my daughter, my oldest. She actually has spina bifida, which is a neurological birth defect. We were living in China at the time when we found out about the diagnosis. I was 24 weeks pregnant, and they found a little bump on her back through ultrasound. And the doctors there, the Chinese doctors there, they told us that with spina bifida, your daughter would not be able to stand up. Your daughter would not be able to walk on her own. Your daughter will probably have development delays, and your daughter won't have normal brain development capacity and all that. So their recommendation was to terminate the pregnancy and try again. Of course, as parents, you don't take recommendations like that slightly, especially first-time parents, right? So we tried so hard to do all the research we could, trying to figure out if we should follow the doctor's recommendations. And luckily, we found a lot of website, written documents, and we were able to connect with the her neurosurgeon here in Arizona before we moved back to the US. So with all that, we were able to make the decision to continue with our pregnancy and have a repair surgery later on. However, we had no idea what it was like to live a life with spina bifida. There was really only a lot of words, but not really a lot of visuals back then. We found this one blog and we're able to see this little kid sitting in a wheelchair playing basketball. And that was the photo that I held on to for the rest of my pregnancy, because I thought if life was like this, I can handle it. It was a lot, it was different, but I can do it. And so since my daughter was born, I definitely consider our family to be very lucky because her symptoms are on the milder end, and she's been able to meet so many milestones and beat the odds and meet all those milestones. So I have been documenting her life with spina bifida, and as you can see here, she is able to walk, she's standing up on her own, she is dancing, twirling, and she was running through this flooded parking lot, like deserted parking lot on our just way one day. And she's able to read and write in both English and Chinese, and she's learning Spanish too as well. And when she was little, she started to learn to swim, and she's a really great swimmer, and now she competes in swim meets. Of course, we joke like, hey, she got the diving class mixed up with the starting block, but considering what she was diagnosed with, and they told us that she would never be able to even walk, this is huge. So by telling this story of my daughter, I am hoping that I can share some hope for other people if some mom is in the same situation as I was, and they were feeling unsure where to go with their life. This can help and provide a visual for them, and they can know, okay, it's probably not going to be that bad. However, if I only focus on the good thing, right, and only share my singular spot on this full spectrum, I would be misleading. So I decided to take this project beyond my own family. And I have been following this family, and they're good. They have become really good friends to our family right now. And I've been doing this project for a while. So this little boy, he is 5. He has spina bifida as well. And as you can see, his life and their life is a lot different from my life. They have a lot more needs, and he is not able to stand up on his own. He needs a little walker, and he's wheelchair bound, and he needs to be cathed with a catheter a couple of times a day because of the lack of bowel control and bladder control. And also he has a lot more medical needs. And I know I take it for granted, even with my daughter with spina bifida now. Like, I assume that when I holler, in the morning, they would just run to the car and get themselves, get all my kids buckled up. But for this mom, she had to carry her boy. A 5-year-old boy is not light, right? She had to carry the boy from the wheelchair through the hallway, into their garage, into their car, every single time they have to go out. And for her, she does this every day. It's not anything extra anymore. It's just her normal life. And also, with anyone who has experience with car seat, you do not want to put a younger kid in the middle seat because you have to reach over. However, for this family, they had to make it work, and they do it every single day. So a lot of times for other people, that you might feel like, oh, I don't know if I can do this, right? Especially if you have a lot of extra doctor's appointment. However, it's also good to see that because the kid is going to the doctor's office so often that they start to build such a strong relationship with their doctors even. So this is his Orthopedics, and they go very often to get their AFO fitted and checked. And it was amazing to see the connection and support this family gets. And also another fun little aspect of life with spina bifida is that because of all these extra appointments, the mom has to take all the kids together every time they go anywhere. And a lot of times at doctor's appointment, the older sister will have to bring her homework and do homework while they're at the doctor's appointment. So this is what I am passionate about. This is also documentary family photography. I am telling this story, and I am going to expand this project even more, I hope, to include more visuals, include more stories, different perspectives. And I just hope that I can fill that gap that I fell into, because this is a lot. The parenting and motherhood, it's hard enough, right? And adding a special need kid into the mix is a lot of work. I often hear a lot of people tell me that, oh, I don't know how you moms do that. But you know what? If you have to do it, I'm sure you will be able to as well. So when people look at these photos, I'm sure it's just like me. A lot more parents will be able to say, this is a lot, but okay, this is what life looks like. I can do this. I will be able to handle. I will be able to get the support I get. And that is why we need to share the stories like this and raise awareness and help people to understand what they're dealing with or they're heading into. So we've talked a lot about personal projects and all that stuff, right? As business owners, and just in general, we know we've got bills to pay. We can't just all go out and pay out of our own pocket and try and get free babysitting with our husband or wives or spouse or family members, so we can go do this all this fun stuff. It's good to have personal projects, but it's also important to know that there is business out there for this genre. When I first started my photography journey, I was specifically told by my mentor and a lot of other people that, no, you can't do that. Like, it's not gonna work. We don't have a market for that. Like, people want lifestyle, this kind of photos, right? However, it's I didn't think that I got it in me to push, right, to follow where my heart is, and I just went with lifestyle. But now I realize that you can totally do this as a business. So I provide sessions like this. I call it day in the life. Sometimes it's a full day, sometimes it's shorter, and I would go and follow along my client's family and just document their life. A lot of times I get this response from my clients that, you know what, especially moms, actually, a lot more moms have been telling me, probably especially after the pandemic, that I really wish that I could have all these moments documented when I was little. And I really enjoyed that. Now I get to show my kids, like, I was here too. I was doing crafts with you. I was cooking. And a lot of moms have told me that through the images that I provided them, they felt seen, because they do all the behind the scene work a lot of times and there's no documentation of it. So you can totally provide, just like any other sessions, you can do documentary sessions, and you just have to learn to not direct and prompt them into doing things. And you just have to be patient and really watch and see what the story is, unfolding in front of you. And of course, there are other opportunities to work in this genre. This session was done with a nonprofit organization, and this nonprofit organization is providing documentary family sessions for families with children or adults impacted by the autism spectrum. So this was their mission, to help raise awareness, to show what life is like with autism. And for me, I actually have people in my extended family that is on the autistic spectrum, and I have a lot of people in my family also on top of autism. They also have mental illness. So it's also very close to me what their mission is. So I decided to work with nonprofits to help raise awareness. And I do want to make a quick note. When people hear nonprofit, a lot of people immediately assume, oh, they're a nonprofit, they have no money. I have to like quote them a lower price so I can get the job, or I feel guilty because this is such a good cost and all that stuff. But that is actually not true. Especially bigger nonprofit organizations, they definitely have a really big budget for their campaigns and marketing department. So they just cannot make a profit as an organization, but that doesn't mean they don't have money to hire a professional photographer to work for them to create campaigns. So just keep that in mind. Because a lot of times nonprofits rely on really emotive and real life images like this to create strong campaigns so they can draw funding in. So it doesn't mean that you have to volunteer for them. If you want to volunteer for them, that's great. But from a business perspective, you definitely can charge them to take these photos. And beyond that, I've realized that there is a trend, probably especially after the pandemic. A lot of companies, bigger companies, started to let go of licensing images straight from the stock photos, and they start to want to hire a photographer to create a digital library of images for their campaigns specifically. And then, so that is when the business opportunity kicks in. You can tell these companies, hey, I know you want to create these like 6 or 10 images that you have in mind specifically for these campaigns, but can we throw in a little bit more of a budget and let me do an entire photo shoot just for your company? And then you will be able to purchase or license a bigger digital library, and you will be able to pull images from it. And for all the other usages, it would be a lot cheaper for the company to do it that way. And it's a win for me to get more work and get paid more. So here you can see on the left-hand side, this was the photo I took on my own family camping trip. My son, the youngest at the time, he didn't want to go to bed because me and my husband, we were still, sitting out by the fire watching stars, and he wanted to join us, and he was, trying to get our attention. And on the right-hand side, that was the photo I took on a recent commercial shoot for this High Roads insurance company. And so I essentially did a day in the life session with the family for their camping adventure outing, day of life. And at the end of the day, I've already completed all the images that my clients requested. So this is a little different when you work with big companies and commercial stuff. Even though this company, when they, High Road, when they contact me and when we were planning our shoot, they specifically asked for my documentary feel or documentary images, not the lifestyle ones. They still gave me a full shot list just so I can make sure that I get the list they specifically want. Because with a pure documentary, you, technically speaking, can't really control much, and you just have to see what unfolds in front of you, and that won't work as well for a commercial job like this. Just imagine if someone says, oh, I need this image for the billboard, and then you're like, well, that didn't happen, the kid was not having it. That would be the end of your career over there, right? So this is more like kind of in between the lifestyle and documentary. But at the same time, after I got all the shots done, I was able to just play and took my own documentary approach or creative control. And I did create a lot more images that are not on their shot list, and they ended up licensing at the end just because they loved what I saw in the real life. So this is also another opportunity out there. And of course, there is stock image. You can always sell these and then upload them and just sell them as stock. So we can probably keep brainstorming what else we can have when it comes to business. But I just want to say that, yes, there is business out there that is specifically asking for documentary photos, just so people can relate a little bit better. All right, so that was probably a lot of information, and I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions afterwards, or if you're just watching the replay and you have questions, please feel free to reach out to me, and you're welcome to send me an email and connect with me, and I will love to chat more about documentary family photography. And I can keep talking forever on this topic. I just love it. So now let's turn time to some questions. And thank you again all for joining me. I really appreciate it. But now let's see if we have any questions. All right, I'll end this first. Okay. Let me take a look. Okay, let's see this questions here. Oh, we've got some good questions. Okay, let me just go through. Elizabeth said, how have you determined your pricing for a day in a live session, and what type? Okay. Oh, wait. I think that was the backward. Okay, I'll just finish that question first. What type of products are you offering your documentary family clients when you deliver the images? This is such a great question. So first of all, pricing. I don't just give out, hey, you should charge this, because how much you charge is should depend on your cost of doing business. Your cost of doing business would be different from mine, right? But a couple of things you want to consider, just like any other kind of session, you want to write down your costs, like hard costs, like, oh, I need to pay insurance, I need to pay for subscriptions, for website, all that. And then you will have to factor in your time cost. So a lot of times I recommend people to start with like a hourly rate, like say, okay, this is how much I want to charge. Like say, for example, I want to charge $20 an hour, as my own wage. And then you calculate how many hours you would need when you do these kind of sessions, right? The planning and the actual photo making process, and then the editing and all that. And then you add in all that, that would be your time cost. And then you will have to have the buffer for tax and, for profit. You need to have a profit margin so you can grow. And then when you calculate all that numbers, and then you just divide and see how many sessions you're able to do each year. And you need to be realistic. We have 52 weeks. And can you do a session a week? And how much marketing you need to do so you can get that number? So pricing itself is really complicated, but I just treat it as any kind of, session. I do a calculation of costs and then go from there. And what types of products are you offering? So I offer digital images, and also I offer a slideshow. And I do want the families to get the whole story. So I don't go with the model of pick 5 images, that kind of thing. I will pull together like a smaller, album or gallery that's more, fine-tuned by me. And then the rest, all the other images, I will just tone it. I will include it as the extended gallery. And then I will make a slideshow out of the highlights. And also, so that would be included in the, currently that would be included in my pricing or packaging. And then I offer albums and metal or canvas print. So I don't offer a lot of different products, just because I feel it's overwhelming, and also just because of the storytelling aspect of it. I would much rather people have a book to flip through than individual images. So yeah, that's for that. Let's see. I think which ones. Okay, these are the first ones. Okay, curious how you help a family with styling for a session. Give them a color palette or go. Okay, so this was more for the lifestyle session. For lifestyle session, I actually use a service. It's called Style and Select, and so I style them like Totally. And then I just give them a visual like, okay, this is what I want your family to wear. And they can work with me and say, okay, I don't like this specific piece of clothing, or I have a similar one. Can that work? And then I'll just work with them individually. But what I do is just I design that for them as a starting point. For documentary sessions, I don't style them. I just tell them try and avoid like huge logos because that will date the time and it's distracting. But other than that, just be for a documentary session is more functional oriented and more honest life oriented. So whatever you wear usually, that's the outfit you should go with. And then here, any tips on lenses and how many? Oh, it rains a lot. Okay. So, my favorite lens is still my 35 millimeter 1.4 lens. I do run into like a really tight space occasionally, and that's why I got a wider lens for like the 24. But honestly, I most of the time for documentary work, I love to stick with my 35. And the reason why I want to bring mostly using one lens is that it's consistent. You're telling a story. So when you change lenses, you will have different feels to the image, and it totally changes how the story feels. And when you're telling a story, it's good to have like a consistency over the board. And another thing is that when you work with a prime lens, especially just one focal lens, it actually challenges you because you now have a creative constraint. You have to make it work, and then that makes your brain sharp and you don't get lazy. What I know, I do have a 24 to 70 lens and I use, but when I have zoom, sometimes I'll get lazy and I'll just stand here and zoom in and out without me actually moving. And then over the time, I feel that when you are getting lazy that way, you just won't be able to make as interesting like images as you could. When you have that constraint, you have to push yourself, like find a way to fit everybody in that 35 when you need a little, technically speaking, you need a bigger space or a wider lens. But and also with just one lens, it's easy to move around. With documentary, you're following the action, so it's not like you station there and you have all the time to switch lenses. So just pick one and stick with it. That's my go-to. But if you do have like a lot of really small house, you could go with a 28 or 24, or you could get a 24 to 70 just so you have more options. And if you do have a zoom lens, I would recommend that you just stay with the prime focal lens to practice. So you just use the 24, 28, 35, 50, and then 70 instead of zooming like continuously. Okay. So I hope that answered that question, Sarah. And then, okay, how did you make the transition? I'm in the same spot, struggling, trying to gain interest. Okay. So this is kind of universal. Whatever new genre, when you change genre, you need to do, portfolio building sessions. Of course, there are different ways of doing that. You can do model calls, or you can just reach out to people and start offering them to the people. That's how I usually do it. So I would just reach out to people I know, and because I already have like a lifestyle client base, I will send out emails and, okay, I need a model, I'm doing this project. So you don't word it as like, oh, I'm transitioning. You just say, oh, I have this project, I am building this portfolio, and I need a specific family for this type of session. And then you will go from there, and then you market with the image you make. And then, of course, another thing is that only show what you want to shoot on your portfolio, wherever your portfolio is on social media, on your website. So if you want to transition into documentary, show more documentary images of your own life or of the sessions that you were able to do with clients. And then that will get the ball going. So people know this is what I expect, and they will be able to love your new images and new style. As for marketing, I always say that it's great to do in-person marketing. Actually, I know with pandemic it has become harder, but I still truly believe in the connection, the power of human connections, actual networking. So I was able to share a lot of the slideshows that I've made of my own family and of my clients, of the documentary styles, to people on my phone. I'm like, oh yeah, this is what I do. And it's a quick, like a minute or two video, and people will watch it. And then they will get a much better idea than just looking at one individual image. So I would say just go start doing it. Find someone and I would say, okay, so start with your own family if you can. That's what I do as well. I do a day in the life session every year, at least for my own family, if not more. And then I can always share that, right? So start with that and then go find some friends, and then you can go from there for marketing. Okay. What is the difference between, so I think I mentioned that. So between lifestyle and documentary, with documentary, you're just not supposed to direct and change and alter scenes through the shooting part, and also afterwards with the editing. It's lifestyle definitely more styled and post. And then I would, for my lifestyle session, like you saw, like in the slideshow, when the family was by the river, I would, prompt them, go into the water, and you're able to like splash water a little bit, just have fun. But I will tell them that, right? But with documentary photo, I would just see how, see how the kid reacts to the water. Like, is the kid hesitant to go in at all? Did the parents need to help the kids to be more comfortable with water? And all those are part of the story. So for lifestyle, it's more, life could be, life should be, right? And then I will only wait till they're in position, get into the, essentially the climax point of the story. They're so happy, and then I'll take a photo of that. But with documentary, I would document the whole process without trying to change it. Maybe the kids won't enjoy the water. If I do the documentary session, I will also tell that story. So that's the difference, I think, between lifestyle and documentary. Okay, Terry had a question. How do you feel about artificial lighting? I'm not a fan and never used it. Am I in the wrong? Okay, so artificial lighting. Artificial lighting is a broader term, I guess, because anything that is not coming from the sun is artificial. If you're working with a light in the house, that's also artificial light. And when I have mixed lighting with, artificial light and natural light, I hate it because it's just hard to get the skin tone right. However, with that being said, light is light. I don't see any light to be good light or bad light. How I see it now, especially with documentary approach, is that, is the lighting helping or enhancing the story, or is it fighting against it? So, for example, if I am telling a story of my baby who doesn't want to go to bed and is constantly trying to get out into the backyard after dark, and then it makes sense to make a really low light to no light image, and I actually have an image of my baby, just standing right by our, like that porch light with a little spotlight and with everything falling into the dark, and he happened to be wearing that stay up all night Batman shirt onesie. So I just thought it was funny, and I took a picture of that. So was that light great? No, if you're looking at it from a lifestyle standpoint, it's really not good lighting, but it fits the story perfectly. So I went with that. So now if you're talking about flash, as in artificial light, with documentary, photography, I don't usually use flash when I don't have enough light. I hope that makes sense. Like, oh, this room is too dark, I'm gonna put a flash there, because if I use the flash, then I am altering the scene. But there are times that I use flash even in a storytelling sense, but that's a little bit more, leaning away from the more traditional documentary when I use a flash, just to create some kind of mood or feel to the image to tell a story from a different perspective or with a different narratives. So with not being a fan of it, I have been spending a lot of time, especially recently, studying how to do studio lighting. I don't use that in my documentary work at all, right? However, it helps you to understand how light works. So with studio lighting, you will have a main light and you will have a kicker light, right? That's how you set it up. But in real life, when you're, on assignment, you're able to tune in that, that information. So if you do have a light coming from the other room, right? And then you have a window with light coming from this direction. And usually your instinct might be, oh, I'm going to go turn off that light in the other room so I don't have to deal with it. But with the studio light set up, you can actually position yourself with the window light behind you as the main light for something, and then the light coming from the other room into the scene as the kicker light. Somehow you just need to work it. You can't alter it, but nothing says you can't position yourself to line things up. And then once you get into that lighting situation, and then you will be able to just be patient and wait for a good composition and moment to get together. So I would encourage you to try it. Try even studio light, and try to work with artificial light around and see how you can really understand how light works, because honestly, light is light, right? Of course, if you get great natural light, that's awesome. I love natural light, but there's also benefit in learning about all the other lighting as well. Okay, Terry also has this question: how do you define a professional photographer? This can be a discussion of its own for a whole day, I think. Technically speaking, I do think if you're getting paid to do something, you are a professional. However, being a professional photographer does not equal to being an expert or a master of this subject. I hope that makes sense. So, and also it depends on where you are. From a tax standpoint, in the US, if you're making more than $400 in profit at the end of the year, you're considered a professional and you will need to pay tax on that. So I think a lot of times I don't necessarily use professional photographer, this term, a lot, because I don't think it's that important, like the tag. A lot of times now I even just view myself as an artist, and photography is my chosen medium, and I can make money out of it, or I can choose to not to make money out of it. So I think that's more of a more freeing and definition. And when I am getting paid, I consider myself a professional photographer. And of course, I hold myself to that standard. You need to be professional, right? When you deal with clients and provide professional customer service and all that stuff. Okay, we answered the pricing question. And then if you're doing, Elizabeth also has this question: if you're doing stock photos using your own family, do you show your kid's face? Such a good question. Okay, I'm still torn. Okay, trust me, I debate on this so often, like every single day. I try not to for most of the time, especially when my kids are little. And then when they're older, like my oldest now, I think she is close to the age that she really understands more like what is going on when you post an image, and you educate the kids on what it means when you post an image on social media or on any platform, especially when you sell images like that. So if I am going to post an image of my kids, if they're old enough, I will ask them for consent. I will ask my daughter, hey, can I use this photo? Even with the photos that I included in the slideshow today for my daughter, I also asked her, like, oh, who's that? Are you okay with me using that image? And when you get into that habit, and I think it's a good habit to get into for sure. And you as a mom, I think you will just have to trust your instinct, what type of image you want to see out there. If you're okay with your kid's face being on this, like, billboard, then use it. If you don't, you would much rather not ever see their face in public spaces and run the risk, then don't. There's no one way or another that says you have to use images like that, with your kid's face staring at the camera, right? And I do try and create a lot of faceless images that are just for my own interests. I always love the little mystery like feeling of it. It's like, oh, I don't even need to see their face as a mom. I know who is doing that, mischievous thing. So you can always try that as well. But yeah, I would say trust your gut, and then ask your kids when if they're older, or when they're older, if they're okay with their face showing or being purchased. Okay. Do you have a price for family versus commercial? Yes. So I have a price for family for sure, but for commercial shoots, it's different because it's based on what they're asking. So if a company for commercial work, if they're asking to license one image for one printed ad campaign, and that's just for, like Arizona, that would be one price, right? But if, say, for this company, they're licensing 100 images from this one session that I will have to go and create, and then they're going to license everything for 5 years or for, perpetuity, then that's going to be a whole lot more than that one single image for one printed ad. So when it comes to commercial shoot, the process will be, I will be talking to your I'll be talking to the clients and then ask what specifically they're asking for, and then I will give them a quote specifically. Okay. What did you study at school? How was your journey of mastery of photography like? Okay, I studied electrical engineering. So I have a master's degree in electrical engineering. But I've never used that like really for any work, not even a day in my life. But it has helped. Of that, I always say the process of getting a master's degree helped me to know how I can master any subject, how I should do research, how I need to spend the time and be down to the earth and just sit in front of a computer, do the hard work and then figure it out. So I'm not afraid of technical stuff. I'm okay with reading, camera manuals if I need to. And I definitely credit that to all my learning experience, even though my major was not in photography. So now as for the journey of mastery of photography, like that can be a long story. But long story short, I think the key point or key takeaway is that really ask yourself why you're doing it. What is your passion? And that will drive you, and that will motivate you and will get you through the hard times. And that's when you are able to really just go out and keep practicing, keep doing it. And then through practice, you will get better and continue to learn. And just like you are here today, taking webinars, taking all different classes, there are so many great opportunities out there. I've done mentorship one-on-one and get portfolio reviews. And all these opportunities out there will help you with your photography journey, and you will become a master at the end of the journey. And I hope, but the key is just keep practicing, keep shooting, keep editing, keep playing, and make it fun. That's another thing. You have to make it fun for you. If it's not fun, then it's not worth doing it. So, and also thank you, Kelly, for sharing my Instagram, and also I can share in the chat as well my website.
That's actually a perfect segue into the email that people are going to be getting at the end of the webinar too, because you've provided us with a landing page for folks to go and download. What is it that they're
Yes.
downloading?
So at the end of the webinar, you will be able to go and download a little tutorial or a guide, and it's story-driven composition. So that is more technical. So when you are composing for a documentary, image is a lot different than, you know, for lifestyle or fine art, because for those, it's a, you know, very much aesthetic driven, and which is great. I love to see pretty beautiful images. However, if you want to tell a stronger story, then you have to compose your image a little bit differently. So I'm providing this guide that you can see, like I included examples how you can like compose for stories, and even with the same scene, you can compose it differently to tell different aspects of stories.
Perfect. Thank you so much. This has been, and I think a lot of people in the chat kind of echo this, one of the most inspiring webinars we've had.
Thank you.
Your story is unique, and you've really found a way to use it to your advantage. And by telling other people about it, you're helping others too. So thank you so much for spending the time, getting ready to come spend time with us today, and then all of the time you spent with us. And I hope that through the download that everybody gets, they'll continue to keep learning, because I do think that is, I mean, you could be the you know, most famous photographer in the world and still, you know, still keep learning every day. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.